This episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard of Anchor by Spotify, let me fill you in. So, Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. You can record and edit your podcast straight from your computer or your phone, whichever works for you. And it's as simple as downloading the Anchor app or going to anchor.fm. And when hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. And the best part about Anchor is that it's 100% free. It's pretty much the ultimate podcast tool at the moment, and honestly, I haven't seen it getting enough attention. We use Anchor for this very podcast, and it has made things 10 times easier because, like I said, it's literally everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Again, go to anchor.fm or download the Anchor app to get started.
So ARGs, they blur the lines between reality and fiction. Whether they are reality or fiction is for you to decide. So what are we talking about? Today we are talking about alternate reality games, which are essentially the evolution of creepypastas, I guess you could say. Creepypastas don't always try to be realistic or blur that line at all, but ARGs are somewhat grounded in reality. So today I want to talk about Gemini Home Entertainment and a few other ones, but that's the first one I'm going to mention. So what do you know about Gemini Home Entertainment? Like, did you get very far into it?
Yeah, I did. So basically, Gemini Home Entertainment takes the form of VHS tapes in a set, I believe, or it might be like, I think it's VHS.
Yeah, it's like something tape. Like that.
And it basically centers around like a campground, sort of. It starts out with just your run-of-the-mill, like public access VHS tape type of thing, and about like nature and animals, and slowly kind of develops into this story about basically skinwalkers. What's kind of akin to skinwalkers, I'd say. And yeah, it's basically not human, and I don't know, just has this air about it. And the further you get as far as looking through the videos, the crazier it becomes, and it just kind of gets crazier and crazier every second.
Yeah, the definition of a skinwalker has been kind of twisted and skewed over the years, so like no one really knows exactly what that is, but that's essentially what the story is about. It's like they're called wood crawlers, I think they call them, and what they do is
wood crawlers.
I'm not sure if they're necessarily aliens. I don't know what they are necessarily, but I think what they do is they need a host, and at first, like, they take over like households. Like, once they take over a person, they look like a normal person. You can't tell the difference. Like, you can't tell they're taken over by a wood crawler. But after a while, their body like deteriorates to this like stringy, disgusting like mess, and then I think they have to find a new host, I'm assuming.
It essentially just feels like skinwalkers, almost.
And I think I don't know what their like end goal is. I don't think it even said what their end goal was, but
no, and it also really feels like a creepypasta, especially this one, just because basically, what's the right word? Kind of the mystique to it, and how it just feels kind of wild, if that makes sense. And it really plays on like supernatural elements and stuff that's kind of just malignant and bad-natured, which I feel like not that many things are like that, if that makes sense.
Well, not that many things do it well, because like I think it's supposed to take place in like the 80s, I'm assuming, because it's like VHS and shit. And they have these like public service announcements saying like I forget exactly how they word it.
It basically talks about a camp, and it talks about a breeding ground for these creatures, and it's connected to lights and a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And it feels really weird how it connects like that. Because it's almost like the camp is making this stuff and it's warning people, but at the same time it's trying to bring people in.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It does both. I kind of don't get it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like I think that's what gives it the air of mystique and a little bit of like plausibility. Because it's like, if you look at supernatural stuff, and it always has to make itself known. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it has to make people aware of what it is, and once you're aware, if you continue along, then it's like, well, it's your fault now. And that kind of does that, and I think that part at least was kind of well planned and well written.
Yeah.
And the guys of folklore and going along with shit like that, you know?
Yeah. I think I always find those, like, you know, like public service announcement, like those warning type videos. I always find that creepy because just imagine seeing that on your TV. Like you're seeing like, yeah, they look like people, and you need to watch out. This is 100% real, and your life is in danger. It's just like that would be terrifying.
Well, I think eventually they'll figure this type of thing out. But you know, everything's on our phone. If someone can figure out how to do public service announcements on the phone and send it out to everyone, something like that, I mean, that'd be pretty crazy, ARG.
Yeah. I don't know if they if it actually
kinda
got sent
like
to our phones.
how we've talked about, you know, chainmail and shit like that, and all the chainmail curses, and
Yeah.
when that shit was pretty much the zeitgeist, and people were doing that all the fuck time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we got like some warning like that, I would shit myself. Like,
I mean, I feel like we're bound to have one with aliens, where it's just like kind of low key like Mars Attacks, or it's like breaking news. Please turn on your TVs or some
Right.
shit, or literally just the video feed to your phone for you to watch, or something wild. I mean, I could very well see that like happening. I mean, obviously it'd be a long shot, but
no, yeah. I mean, I can if something was worthy of notifying us to that extent, then yeah, I can totally see that happening.
I'm surprised they don't test that more often in case there is like a state of emergency.
Right. Yeah.
Because I knew they did the broadcasting thing, but realistically, everyone has a cell phone on them.
Yeah.
And somehow they're able to do that shit with like Amber Alerts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't see why it'd be any different for something a mass
Yeah.
proportion.
It would probably be the same format as an Amber Alert, I would assume. But I think they would. I don't know where exactly they would do it, but you know, something like let's just say the Gemini home entertainment thing is real. If it was something to that extent, you can't just say everything you need to say in an Amber Alert, right? Because an Amber Alert is it's a few sentences. So I feel like they would need to make a post somewhere or something that shows you all the information you need to know to be safe. If that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if the government has a Twitter or something, but like I don't know, something. Post a website. I don't know.
Imagine how your stomach would sink if the government said they look like us, but they're not us. Beware of people acting strange or just something wild like that. You'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. I would cry.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if they look like us, you don't know who to trust at all.
Well, we've kind of went over this with talking about potentially talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so I think we're gonna do an episode on that as well, just to let everyone know. But I don't know. That's just like super existential horror.
Yeah, I think that shit. Mandela Catalog. That's another ARG. that shit's kind of the same thing, but that's not as bad because the alternates in that, which are the monsters, they look like people, but they have like deformities, so you can kind of easily tell. They also have different voices, so you
Yeah,
can kind of
honestly,
tell
I've
when it's one of them.
I've seen stuff about that, but never actually watched any of it, if that makes sense. Like, I've seen a bunch of media about that. I've seen it in my suggested page and tab a lot.
Yeah, it was really popular. Mandela, I'll just
Honestly,
briefly explain.
it looked disturbing enough that I was like, anytime I'm around to watch the shit, it's at night, and I'm just like, I don't really feel like watching this shit at night, even though I don't think it's like super bad. But I mean,
I think Mandela Catalog freaks me out more than Gemini Home Entertainment, cause like I don't know, watching those public service announcements videos that are just like, yeah, if you hear someone at your door in a voice that sounds familiar to you but it sounds slightly off, do not open the door, and especially do not open the door if you see someone that has like crazy deformities and stuff like that. Like they have little not diagrams, like logos, I don't know what you call it, of what they would possibly look like. And it's kind of like the men and women signs you see on bathrooms, but it was like those, but they were like the head would be on their side, their arm would be where their head is, or like something crazy like that. And it's fucking scary. Like, cuz imagine someone going up to your, I don't know, your door and being like, "Hey, can you let me in?" And it's like your, I don't know, someone you know, like your mother's voice, or like, or someone you know, and it just sounds slightly off. You'd be like, "Fuck."
yeah, I haven't looked into it, and also I think what might be kind of scary about the idea is just if you understand what the Mandela effect is, you're curious enough to look it up to like Mandela effect. That's something that's a pretty popular topic that people really like. So I don't know. I would just be like, fuck is this, man? This
It's
isn't
kind of
no Mandela effect shit. Yeah.
it's kind of like I don't know if you've seen it, the anime Parasite, the Maxim.
Yeah, and I've seen a bit of that. Not the full thing though.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, where they take over someone and just like, you know, they look exactly like them almost, and they just have slight differences. That, I don't know, that concept freaks me out. But yeah, I wanted to bring up another ARG called The Sun Vanished. Yeah, you've never heard of it, you said?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It's a really, really well done, like one of the best, like most realistic, I guess I would say, ARGs I've seen. It's basically like, it started out as someone looking at their TV, recording their TV, and it was a new, super realistic like news layout, and people talking saying the sun is gone. It's been 24 hours and the sun has not come up yet. And basically the whole ARG is a bunch of videos that are pitch black, and you look like, it's everyone saying, yeah, dude, the sun's not coming up. What is going on? This is crazy. And it basically turns out to be like, they don't fully explain what is causing it, but basically it's like aliens kind of. And the aliens are lights in the sky. So I don't know how he did it, but he would look up in the sky in the videos. Maybe it was CGI, I don't know, but he'll see like like lit up like diamonds in the sky, and he'd get in his car and just like drive away. And it's just insane how much dedication they put into these ARGs. But that's basically what it's about. It's just about the sun not coming up ever again, and just imagine if that happened.
For people that aren't huge into ARGs, it is pretty crazy how they can kind of affect stuff and make things that just aren't plausible and just don't even have a lick of realism, and basically make them into something that you're like, wow, what the fuck? Because things like Siren Head, I mean, that became kind of like a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I think it's cool as
anyone
shit.
with any common sense would look at Siren Head and be like, I mean, that's a load of shit, but
Yeah,
it was done pretty well, and people are like photoshopping it into everything, and then you have people saying that they see it, and all of a sudden it kind of goes off the rails.
yeah.
And it's not a particularly in-depth or even like interesting ARG or story, and it's really not convincing, but somehow it was able to basically capture an audience and take a life of its own, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that's pretty hard to do.
Oh yeah. Especially, I mean, you gotta have it's something you can't like half-ass. Like, you really have to put time and effort into these kind of things, or else it'll just come off as like, I'm not buying that. Like, I mean, obviously we suspend our disbelief anyway, right? But it's gotta be somewhat convincing. The more convincing, the more people will cling on to it, seems like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ARGs out there for some reason. I just can't think of many off the top of my head. And ARGs are actually pretty old in concept. Like, there's one that I know of where it was basically a guy acting like he had kidnapped someone and keeping them as a pet and making them do shit. And it was basically like a you decide. It was basically like, what do they call those in the dark web? Like the fake things where they act like, you pay money and you can decide what happens to someone.
Red rooms?
Yeah, there was basically like fake red rooms. Like, it was like a fake red room, even though red rooms themselves are fake. Like,
Yeah.
they've never shown any proof of any of those even having any semblance of, reality.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I never heard
yeah,
of that one.
it was during the early stages of YouTube.
Yeah, some of them do date back that far.
So, I mean, the idea of these have been around for quite some time.
Yeah. Some of them, and there's plenty of failed attempts at ARGs. There's a lot of people that just go on like Twitter or YouTube, they make an account really quick and they just do something edgy, make something that's like, oh, that's kind of disturbing. We're supposed to be scared that a psycho's making these videos or something like that. No dedication, no effort. They're just like, yeah, look at my ARG, and it's just like, yeah, no one's gonna pay attention to that.
I don't know. ARGs are pretty interesting when they're done right, but when they're done wrong, it's just like,
They're like really
who
bad.
do you think is falling for this shit?
Yeah, cause I've seen a lot of people, cause I follow a lot of horror creators on like Twitter and stuff, and people will DM them like creepy things to like get an ARG started, because they know they'll cover their content if it's worth paying attention to, because that's kind of what horror creators do. So, and they'll do that in a attempt to get people to pay attention, and then they're just like, they just make themselves look like a fool, because they'll just end up telling their whole audience, yeah, look at this guy who's desperately trying to make something creepy and just failing at it.
Yeah. One thing that I would say is really interesting about them too, if we kind of break it down, is just the fact that all these like urban legends kind of turning, and even video games turning into RPGs, ARGs. Like if you look at stuff like Five Nights at Freddy's, that game series basically turned itself into an ARG
Oh yeah.
with its lore and its backstory, and it wasn't trying to convince people that it was real, but it was trying to get you like deeply entrenched in the in the story of it and all that, and I feel like that shit's pretty cool, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I always like when a world is like really fleshed out and they have a lot of lore, but they don't answer all the questions. That way you can still speculate. They don't ever really tell you everything that's going on. They kind of leave some of it ambiguous. I like that because I feel like good horror is when you don't know everything. I mean, that's the root of horror, is the fear of the unknown. That's like the scariest thing, pretty much. So it's always good when they do that. Cause I don't know, like say Gemini Home Entertainment was just like, they're aliens. We know exactly where they came from. We know exactly what their goal is, and all that. It wouldn't be as scary because it removes the mystery from it.
Yeah, and like in real life, I mean, once you kind of know someone's out there and know what they want and know what they're doing, you can kind of make arrangements. But when something is, like you said, unknown, everyone has to be on guard and on edge the entire time.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what exactly what's going on. So when you can't gauge the situation, it just makes it a fucking mess.
It's kind of like I was saying, is like the root of all horror, because like this is like kind of you might not think the same thing of this, but it's like if say something's chasing you, just anything that was threatening, and you were in say a hallway where they can only come from one way, or if you could be in that scenario, or you could be in a scenario where you were in a big room and they could come from anywhere. The big room is going to be infinitely scarier, and people would choose the hallway any day because they know where they're coming from. That little bit of knowledge is like makes things just slightly less bad. And games use that a lot.
You could go a different way with that, just because if there's only one way in, one way out, then you have the feeling of you had to face this thing.
Yeah, well,
and
if
I
there's
almost hate parts of the game more just because it's like you have to face it because it's right there, and like there ain't shit that you can do about it. So you might as well like man up, and the idea of that shit's like you.
Oh yeah, I mean,
terrifying.
I'm saying like if you can keep going the way you're going, and the thing will stay behind you. But if you have to face it, yeah, that's easily scarier than than pretty much anything else.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of modern horror games. I mean, I think Outlast and the newer Resident Evils have done that pretty well.
Yeah.
Or I don't even know if you want to call it well, but they've done it to where it's kind of worrisome.
Yeah, Outlast is pretty good with that. Outlast knows exactly what it's doing, which is a horror franchise for those who don't know, and the scariest thing in Outlast to me was when you're in the sewer and the huge dude Chris Walker's walking at you, and he could literally be anywhere in that huge room, and all you hear is the swishing of water as he gets close to you, and it's like pitch black. That was like so well done. I thought that was great. It's horrible, but it was great.
Yeah, I think that game did pretty well with the lighting and the camera and all that shit.
Yeah.
And forcing you to basically be in a darkly lit area.
Like all the time.
Game, and then barely having any light, and it constantly going out. And he should have got a better camera.
Yeah. I mean, his camera dies in like what, 2 minutes, and before he has to switch the batteries. It's like, what the fuck? What kind of camera do you have?
Yeah, he's literally He literally was going into a place that he knew he needed the damn camera, and
Yeah.
he didn't buy anything that was worth a damn.
Like probably the worst camera he can afford.
Yeah, honestly, when I didn't see any security guards and I saw the shit just looking fucking wild, I probably would have been like, I don't know. Honestly, I would have probably just sent a drone in with a GoPro, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the horror tropes don't make any sense because they'll see something like blood or something like that, and they'll continue to go forward, and it's like that's the kind of shit that takes me out of stuff, like immersion wise, because I'm just like, who would do that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they took the character pretty well in that one, just because, you know, he got the email and he was like, what's the best word for it? He basically like has to do that to make a living. So a story that big, you know, you'd be able to sell to a bunch of newspapers and shit.
Yeah, that's true.
But it makes you feel pretty bad for the guy because he has to go in a fucking insane asylum where the guy was literally getting his shit jacked when he was sending the email.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be pretty pissed. Like, why the fuck would you call me into this shithole?
Yeah.
And I don't know too much about the other games in the series. I just really know about Whistleblower and Outlast itself.
Outlast 2 was like a village of insane, like, I guess, overly religious people, kind of. Like, they're just out of their minds in that game. And there's this, like, lady in particular that's, like, 10 feet tall with a pickaxe, and she's chasing you, like, screaming, like, Bible verses at you. It's just, like, it's so ridiculous. It's terrifying. I really like
how
the
does
game,
that
though.
one? How does that one kind of fold back into the Outlast like scope of things?
It's like the everyone in the town or village, whatever it is hallucinating because of towers that were made by the same company that owned the asylum. I don't know why the towers are doing that, but they're using signals to, like, I think it was an experiment, actually. I think they were experimenting on the town, seeing what the effects would be of, they're called Murkoff towers, just to see what the effects would be on a small, isolated place where they won't, like, you know, they don't want to do it in a city, right, where everyone will know what's happening to them. They're gonna do it in an isolated place where no one can find out. So that was basically the only real connection to the first game. I don't remember why they're doing it though.
If we look at this in the scope of an ARG, even though it's a game, I mean, if someone were able to basically get together in like a fake documentary type of a setting and have that be a thing to where you just feel like fucking there's shit going off and it's just super fucked up, you'd almost be like, what the fuck?
I think that'd be cool as hell. I mean, you know, Blair Witch was originally like an ARG. Before it was a movie.
You know what? I would say Blair Witch is the first ARG.
Yeah, it's probably because that movie's old as shit. And before it came out, they were doing like all this promotional material that no one knew was fake at first. I mean, nowadays people will pick up on it really quick, but I feel like back then, since people weren't doing it that much, people were like, "Is this real? Like, what is this?"
Honestly, there's still people that look at Blair Witch Project and wonder, was that shit just all a bunch of bullshit, or is that shit like kind of real? Like,
yeah,
that's
that's
something
what I
that
like.
people actually discuss.
That's what I like about found footage stuff. I don't know. It's just, it comes off as so much more real to me, because it's like, You know, it's like the we found this footage, you know, wherever this happened at, and this is what was on it, and that concept is just scary as fuck to me. Like, imagine if the guy from Outlast died in the asylum, and well, he did. Spoiler alert. But imagine if someone found that footage. Can you imagine people's faces when they watch what this person was recording on that footage? They would lose
Yeah.
their minds.
Yeah, I mean, what would be super crazy too is at that point, it would be pointless. Like, you wouldn't be able to do shit. Like,
Yeah.
it would already be. You basically just be watching a real life horror movie.
Yeah, literally.
You know? And I think anyone that watched that, when you look at, like, detectives that have to deal with, like, crazy crimes and shit like that, like, it just drives them insane.
And like these I don't know, detectives, I guess, that watch that kind of stuff first, they're probably the first people to see it, if they ever even release these to people, to the public, which they usually don't, I think. But those people probably do like. You think they get desensitized to it, or you think they actually it starts to bother them? Because
I think it probably just would fuck someone up pretty bad.
yeah, I would
I'm
think
being
so,
honest.
to be honest.
It would probably just. I don't think it would. I think it would traumatize you, and then that might turn to just being desensitized.
I feel like you wouldn't get desensitized to something like that. Like, to a certain extent, I think you would. I think you would kind of get used to it. But if you see something that's like super messed up and you keep seeing things like that, I feel like you're gonna think like the world is so sick, and you're gonna be so much more cynical and just in a worse headspace because of that. I feel like.
Yeah, no, I think it would.
Like, seeing stuff like that all the time. It's like same with the
I
people who
think
see
that.
crime scenes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely would. Uh, it wouldn't just hurt your psyche. It would just. It would. You would get tired of that very fast.
Yeah. I wonder how many people like get to that job or that position and quit like soon after because they're
You
like,
know,
this is not what I signed up for.
I would say probably not that many, because usually you're probably thinking of like jobs where it's like officers and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, they
You
probably
know,
prep you for this stuff anyway, like without a
I
doubt.
mean, you
So
probably have to take a bunch of psychiatric evaluations to do
yeah,
a job
for
like
sure.
that,
Yeah,
just to make sure that you can handle it.
that's true.
Because I mean, even dealing with people in their worst days, like people that are just really down on their luck and just seeing people are struggling all the time, would probably that would probably start affecting you pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the
Especially if
people.
you're just not equipped to handling it.
Yeah, it's like the people who work like suicide hotlines. Like, you think those people are probably like, I can't imagine how exhausted and just mentally exhausted too, like how they would feel all the time. Like this shit they deal with like on such a regular basis. Like, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be cool.
I feel like
I
that's
mean,
not healthy for anyone. Even if you
well,
are like
they
used to
always
it.
say, psychiatrists always have a couple psychiatrists, you know, because when you listen to people's problems all day,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like you basically just, I don't know, you probably lose it.
Yeah. You become so like, you'd probably become such a negative person or after a while.
Well, I mean, it depends. I guess it would depend on like the person's life and point of view. But if someone just had a really fucking rough go, and it always seems to be super rough on them, I mean, I could imagine where that's just like, what do you do at that point? Like, you have
Right.
to listen to that, and then you have to try and be impartial and help them, and it's almost like, I mean, these people have it rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really couldn't imagine that. I mean, And
Yeah.
if you're listening to that all day, every day, and that's your profession, I mean, for fuck's sake, you're a saint.
Yeah,
Damn near.
for sure. I mean, I guess it just comes down to not literally just this, but like, getting food on the table. And that's what they're good at. And so,
Yeah, I mean, that's a job that you would definitely like have to really want to do,
yeah.
because
And
that's
I
not a
mean,
job that you could half-ass.
they can't really turn around and stop doing it either, because they probably went to
Yeah,
school
well,
for
yeah, you have
this.
an obligation too. Like once you agree to help someone, I mean, you can't just be like, yeah, sorry,
That
it's
too,
hard,
yeah.
and you're bumming me out. I mean, like, could you imagine if you were seeing someone they were just like, yeah, you're a major buzzkill?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that. You have an obligation to those people.
Yeah. I mean, how do people feel? How do they feel when they've gotten a PhD to do this, and they're like, I don't like doing this. It's like, it's kind of too late now. You're wrapped in. You knew what you signed up for, and you're getting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very necessary job. But, usually the necessary jobs that are like that aren't much fun.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know. We kind of went off topic, but
Yeah, we did.
not
But
too
that's
bad.
fine.
I would say it's even gone to the point of kind of be mainstream media, like shit like Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, where it's just, there's such a mythos about him that like Slenderman turned into an ARG and then turned into real crimes.
Yeah. It also got a movie. I think it got multiple movies, actually.
Yeah, it had multiple movies, multiple games, multiple recreations. It just kind of turned into
I'm curious to read what the first ever rendition of Slenderman was like compared to what it was in 2013. Like how different they would be, or if they'd be mostly the same. They'd probably be quite different, because that's usually people twist them like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to a podcast about folklore, and they actually spoke about Slenderman and kind of going over how it's modern day folklore and just kind of how cool the idea of that is that we kind of witnessed something turn we witnessed a mythos being made into something being to the point where it actually feels real, and it became so popular and kind of mainstream that it literally was able to take a life of its own.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Bigfoot and shit like that, where it's like all of a sudden people are seeing Bigfoot, all of a sudden people are seeing Slenderman, and it's just this.
If you made a horror icon like Slenderman or one of those, and you hear people saying they've seen him and there's sightings of him, you know you've done something right with your story. Well, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.